Well, hey everybody. I wanted to take a moment to respond via video to Tucker's video about should we be flying during the COVID-19 epidemic. So that's what this video is all about. I wanted to take a moment actually to say, Tucker, you hit the nail on the head absolutely perfectly. It's very clear from the responses and the overwhelming support that you had that you clearly understand the community and really show the community how we should be behaving. So I appreciate that more than anything else. I also want to take a moment to actually thank everyone who's been supporting me with your positive comments and feedback throughout the course of this 50x challenge. Really the number of negative comments that I've had have been almost none, maybe 3 or 4 here and there. And mostly I think that's just because people don't understand how the 50x challenge works. So I'm going to try and take a moment to actually talk about that. Like Tucker, I see both sides of the argument for flying or for not flying, but for me personally, I've tried to find the middle ground, just as Tucker suggested, and try and enjoy the sport, try and see the whole country as I had planned, and of course to complete my challenge of trying to fly the Paramotor in all 50 states. So you know, like everybody else, I want to be a good ambassador. I don't want any negative press, and I want to do things that are responsible, that help to promote the sport, and do so in a safe and respectful way to everyone else that's out there. So with that, let me just talk a little bit about how the 50x challenge works and how I've been traveling. For most of you who've been following me for a while, you probably would have noticed that when I started the trip, actually I had relatively little engagement with a lot of people. I didn't know that many people, didn't know that many schools. Most people didn't really realize what I was doing, and so there wasn't a lot of interest. But of course, as I've traveled and the more states that I've covered, so more and more people have been very interested and have wanted to meet me and learn more about what I'm doing and actually fly with me. And so typically speaking, you know, I've been spending about 98 to 99% of my time all by myself because first of all, I'm in my truck traveling from location to location, and some of the states are pretty big. It takes a couple days to get across them, and I don't engage with that many people. Definitely, you know, as I started to contact more people and more people were interested before the pandemic, I was definitely a lot more engaged, but that has all changed quite substantially. I've been able to primarily, well, I mean, part of the goal was to do a lot of touristy things along the road, and definitely some of that has changed. I haven't been able to go to some of the state parks. While I was in Maine, for example, I really wanted to have a nice big lobster, sit down in a nice restaurant and kind of spoil myself for having that, and that did change. But you know, overall, yeah, fewer and fewer people are coming to meet me. Typically now, maybe I might get, you know, between 0 and 2 pilots who actually are able to come out and fly with me. And at most, typically, maybe 2 or 3 witnesses, some of those are, of course, the pilots, actually get together. So, you know, first of all, my home is my camper. I don't actually have a place in California to go back to. So I'm going to figure that out at some point, and that would probably mean some engagement with people. So for those of you who said go home, well, I am home. You know, what I've tried to do is make some adjustments that make sense for my own safety, but more importantly, I don't want to be responsible for, you know, getting somebody else infected. And so I've been very, very careful not only to make sure that I stay healthy, but that the engagements that I do have with people are very, very limited. And in fact, if you think about how the 50x challenge specifically works, right? I drive to a location. Typically, I try and connect with a couple of people who can photograph and video my takeoff and my landing, so they don't need to actually have direct contact with me to do that. And in fact, then we take a photograph. As you've seen from the photographs, we try and keep some distance between us, the 6 feet that's recommended. And then the last part of the documenting process is to actually have someone sign my log, and that's the closest physical contact that I have to have with most people. And so you would have seen the video with Johnson Q spraying a whole bunch of hand sanitizer at me. I have a hand sanitizer jar that I let people sanitize before they touch my pen or their own pen, and the sign-off sheet. They sign it, they go ahead and sanitize again, and we both do that, and we take care of things. So I'm going to some pretty what I would consider, solid, approaches to try and make sure that we limit those risks in terms of flying. So I made a couple more notes here. I'm just going to quickly look through. Definitely, some of the things that have changed. Like I avoid supermarkets and I don't go to fast food. My last time of actually buying food was at a very quiet Walmart. There were very few people there back in Connecticut. That was the first time I had actually stocked up with food since Florida, so that had been sort of almost maybe a 2-week period. It's been nearly 3 weeks since I filled up with food last. I don't go to fast food places as much as I would like some fast food and something nicer than the the noodles and cans of soup that I have. So I'm making those things where I limit my engagements. When I'm stopping for fuel, I've actually gone through several states, of course the smaller states, where I don't have to fuel up. I wait until I absolutely have to fill up with fuel. I think yesterday I had about 4 miles of fuel left before I filled up. So I don't want to create risk by not filling up with fuel, but I'm being very careful as to how frequently I fill up with fuel. I make sure that I wear gloves. I avoid contacting things. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing there to just make things even more safer. Even down to, I needed the bathroom yesterday and I was at a fuel station and I go into my camper and I use that toilet rather than going to a public toilet. So lots of things that I'm doing there. Some of the things that I've stopped doing, of course, is to try and engage with the press. I've limited the number of posts that I do. And overall, I'm actually flying a little less, unfortunately, and in fewer locations. And those places where I am still flying, I'm flying by myself, and I'm not having engagement with anybody else. So like Tucker, I kind of agree. I think if you can avoid flying near busy or populated areas and limit the risk to the paramotor community of negative response from people, there's always going to be somebody out there who doesn't understand or just doesn't have something positive to say that's going to be negative. So definitely change your launch sites, don't hang around. These are all things that Tucker suggested, and I'm 100% behind all of those suggestions. Some additional little facts I just thought I would share here is that I've completed 10 states over the last month, so about 2 a week. I think it's about 168 hours in the week, and I probably interact at most about an hour per location that I go to. So it's very, very limited. The other thing that you will have noticed is that I fly at a lot of airports. It's not like I go to a lot of public parks and things. I actually tend to fly at airports. I'm a big believer that as paramotorists, we should try and leverage airports more and help not only become good ambassadors for the sport at airports, but also help educate general aviation about the fact that we do know about airspace, we do know how to behave appropriately at airports. And so I spent probably, in fact, out of the last 10 states that I've been to, 8 of them were flying out of airports. So I'm a big fan of flying from airports. Take off, leave if you can, or fly during times when there is very little other aviation traffic around. And a lot of times I find, especially during the summer, we tend to fly early or we fly late, and especially in the mornings, a lot of general aviation doesn't start till a little bit later, at least at the locations I've been to. So I've also made other adjustments, right? I've had to sacrifice not seeing some friends of mine in Philadelphia, in Long Island, and in upstate New York. So those are some changes that I've had to make. I'm here in upstate New York right now, and getting ready to try and fly hopefully tomorrow. And once that's completed, then I will be making my way really what I would hope might be out of some of the hot zone, and I'll be heading up to I guess where am I going? Michigan next. So once I'm completed with Michigan, then we continue to make my way on. I'm very excited to try and get up to state number 40, which for me will be, I think, Illinois. And at that point, I'll be 80% through this trip. So it's been a big undertaking. It's taken nearly 5 months to, in fact, nearly 6 months almost now, to get to this point. And so, this for me is still very much about a personal trip and achieving my goal to see the whole country. This is the other thing. While I'm driving, I'm still getting to see so much beauty and so many different places across the country. If you've never driven around this country, you absolutely should. There's so much to see, and people have been really so amazing. So with that, I'll wrap this up. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate everyone's support. And as you saw, I shot this from in my car, still social distancing. But there it is. Thank you very much. Be safe out there. Keep enjoying flying. Do it responsibly. Be good ambassadors. And thank you for all your support.